Hello and welcome to your Team Brick. In today's video, didn't go quite as planned. And so as you can see, I'm currently launching the rocket for this mission. It's based on my Benishaw 2 derived launch vehicle. And this time, it's a enhanced variant with larger side cores. And I'm playing this footage back pretty quickly because this is a long mission. It's a mission to Eve and Gilly, which I haven't been to in JNSQ. And I decided to visit there with with really 3 probes: one to land on Eve, one for Gilly, and one as a Eve orbiter. But So usually, I record my videos on the weekend. I usually get some work done on Thursday and Friday of the previous week, but due to various other things going on, I had very little time to do this mission, and so I didn't have much time to test it. And this was not attempt 1 at this mission. This was the second attempt, at least counting the ones that got to orbit. One of them, Kerbalism engine failure, messed the mission up before it even got to orbit. But yeah, we've already completed our Kerbal escape burn, currently time warping towards Eve. And a slight correction burn, because we're doing some aero braking, which was a major issue, and that was what killed the first attempt. I forgot to quick save, and the craft was destroyed on atmospheric entry. And however, I decided to actually just insert into orbit using engines and then do air braking to deliver that orbit. Except Kerbalism again wants to cause me issues and caused an engine to explode. But I was able to finish the burn on the second orbit. And you can see Eve in JNSQ looks a lot more like a real-life Venus. I personally think it looks better without that much unrealistic purple. And we're now going to continue to adjust our orbit, and this will be the start of our aero braking. And we've separated the upper stage, and are preparing to enter the atmosphere. And Eve's atmosphere, it is incredibly brutal. You saw how quickly that upper stage exploded. The heat shield, which so I have the jettison of the heat shield in the staging menu, so it shows up as a decoupler. It's already getting pretty hot. I have the Kerbal Engineer Redux thermal readouts on screen. And yeah, I didn't realize that it would be this difficult to air brake in Eve's atmosphere, and this will cause further issues throughout the mission, which you'll see later. And I was very frugal with this aero braking. I was very concerned that if I went too deep into Eve's atmosphere, the craft would just it would become aerodynamically unstable and very rapidly disintegrate, as what happened with the previous attempts. Now you'll see me a quick save throughout this mission. That's because, many points of failure during this. And after several passes, that first heat shield has expended all its ablator, so I was now using the second heat shield, and I decided to use one of these separation rockets to try to slow down a bit more. That was a terrible idea. Yeah, we lost the top of the we lost the top of the aero shell. There were some explosions. I checked the F3 menu to see if anything important was lost. And this was a major issue. And if you're wondering how this thing is remain powered, I'm extending the solar panels when we're on the daylight side of the planet. Just as something to note. And on this final aero brake pass, the solar panel was overheated, I guess, the top of the aeroshell was acting as a heat sink. And so without the solar panels, the craft would run out of electricity. And so I had to jettison the aeroshell and insert into orbit. And you can see this craft, the two landers, the Eve landers on top, and the Gilly lander, and then the main craft. They have various scientific experiments, and yeah, most of the science experiments are from Tantares. And yeah, it's basically this craft is an amalgamation of various parts I found in my mods list. And for some reason, the engine plume didn't appear against the atmosphere. But you can see this interesting maneuver being performed, where I deorbited the main craft, detached the Eve lander, and then inserted back into orbit. This was not how I planned on doing this part of the mission, but that is what I had to do. And during atmospheric entry, the probe was misaligned, causing some of the experiments to overheat. So yeah, this already isn't off to a great start. And I had done simulations of this, and I knew there were going to be some incredibly high G-forces during this. And so you might wonder, why am I using a Mercury capsule heat shield? That's because it has a landing bag. Basically, during the final descent, as it's nearing the surface, it deploys this basically just an airbag to cushion the landing of the craft. And I thought it was a good idea at the time. I don't know why I added it. The parachutes already are enough because Eve's atmosphere, it's incredibly dense, and you can even make craft without parachutes that will safely land on Eve. And during the descent, the speed we're moving at landing is, I believe, 1.2 meters per second. So I definitely did not need that landing bag. But the heat shield, it holds up, because all Kerbal Space Program heat shields, no matter what you're doing, they're always overpowered. And yeah, these are some really high G-forces, aren't they? Again, Eve's atmosphere is especially brutal in JNSQ. But we've passed through the worst of the heating. We can now deploy the drogue chutes, and also the main parachute is again a Mercury capsule parachute, and you can see solar panels are from a Ranger lander. Not sure why, but yeah, that means this craft is a cursed amalgamation of Mercury, Ranger, and various. This thing is cursed. Probably why this mission went poorly. But yeah, descent was incredibly long, so I'm just showing the highlights. So we've passed through the lowest cloud layer and can now see the surface. Already viewing it would be difficult, but it's also night, because of course I had to land on the night side of the planet. Again, I didn't have time to revise any parts of this mission. But we're descending and slowly spinning due to the imbalanced weight of the craft. And you can see the parachutes deploying. And you can see the craft descending. It lands and immediately rolls over. And the craft comes to a rest laying on its side. Yeah, I didn't actually test the craft landing on land, and didn't realize it would tip over. We'll come back to that later. Right now, we need to get the Gilly lander to Gilly. And so this involves firing the engine on the main orbiter to increase the craft's orbit to intersect the orbit of Gilly. And I made a possibly the most inefficient ghillie encounter possible, because this is gonna be possibly, well, so you can see ghillie. Not much has really changed about it. It's still potato-shaped rock orbiting Eve. However, this is incredibly high-speed ghillie flyby, which are words that don't make logical sense. But yeah, no, we don't have enough delta V to slow down around ghillie. Which again, that is not a logical concept. But yeah. So instead, we just do not have the delta V to enter orbit or land on ghillie. So instead, this will be a flyby probe. Again, the rushedness of this mission is very apparent here. And so yeah, I'm desperately using the RCS thrusters to try to slow down. At this point, I knew we weren't inserting into orbit, so we can deploy the science experiments and try to get any data we can before we are ejected from ghillie's sphere of influence. And so the craft, before its mission truly begins, is left derelict in orbit around Eve. As for the orbiter, I expend the remaining bit of its fuel, getting it into an orbit of Eve, where it can communicate with the lander. Speaking of which, we can now see Eve's surface in the daylight, except the lander has rolled over again, and now its solar panels are not facing the sun. So, yeah, no, this mission did not go well. I probably should not try to attempt interplanetary missions with only one day allotted to actually flying it. But yeah, anyways, I still hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you like and subscribe, and goodbye.